Okay. So first we'll go ahead with the MCQs, but before that, uh, certain things that I followed during my time, it only gets better with more you do, but also that elimination is also very important. The idea is to approach, even if you do not know the question, the idea is to approach it still and try to guess for or even try to make guesses, but go towards more like right answers. They all might be right and they all might be fitting, but which is more right than the other and closer to being the answer. And try to eliminate first that on the basis of this hierarchy first. But anyways, we'll see the questions to actually get an understanding of how that works. So yeah. Okay, so the first question says, system justification theory argues that people are resistant to group identities, people defend and rationalize the status quo, hierarchies are always rejected, or all individuals rebel against norms. I'll wait for a couple more to answer. Yes, correct. So people defend and rationalize the status quo. So it says system justification. So in the word itself, it says that you are trying to justify the systems, social structures and systems that exist, and it is borrowed from social psychology. So yeah, people are resistant to group identities are talking about the uh, the social and the group identities that turns to form out of hierarchies, like in group, out groups, and how resistant they are to that. Hierarchies are always rejected, and all the other options are relatively all individual rebel against norms do not fit the system justification theory in general. So yeah, this is the correct answer. Biserial correlation is used when both variables are continuous, one is dichotomous and the other continuous, both variables are nominal, or all variables are ordinal. Okay, Tanvi, Alka, Sanya, Varsha, right? Okay, yes. So biserial correlation actually has one variable as dichotomous and the other variable as continuous. Can you tell me how it differs from point biserial? What is different in point biserial? Does anyone know? Yes, natural and artificial. So which one is biserial? Does it deal with natural or does it deal with artificial continuous? Do we understand? Right. So artificial categories are artificial continuous variables could be ones that we create or are created for our understanding and quantification, pass, fail, etc. However, male, female, all of these are naturally existing continuous variables. A very basic example would be this, right? Okay. Generativity versus stagnation corresponds to early adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood, or adolescence. Whose theory are we talking about here? Yes, Catherine Alpha Erickson. Right, right. And when, for what do we use late adulthood is related with which category? What is late adulthood related with? Maturity. Okay. Any other answers? Yes, integrity versus despair. So integrity versus despair is what late adulthood looks at, where how much and all of these categories borrow something from the previous category. So if we are in the previous category, so that is how you can try to remember it as well, in the form of a narrative that what it borrows from the previous, so that you do not confuse within the categories in itself. So if you follow a story, like if in the middle adulthood, I get into a stagnation and I am stuck and I'm not going forward if a person who is in middle adulthood is not able to go forward and is not generating quote unquote for the generations ahead, in late adulthood, they might feel despair because of the inability to do so. So this is how you can conceptually form it so that you do not, get confused in the exam. Timeout in behavior modification works by increasing reinforcement schedules, removing access to positive reinforcers, adding punishment directly, or teaching new behavior. Okay. Yes. So removing access to positive reinforcers is what timeout is. Right? Okay. Partial correlation controls for random variance, the influence of third variable, sampling error, or measurement bias. Why do we do a partial correlation in general? What do we want to know by partial correlation? What are we trying to check or measure? Does anyone know why we try to do partial correlation? What are we aiming at by what happens if we are able to control the influence of third variable? What happens? What would be we achieving in that research if yes, Sanya, to check if there is a direct relation between the two other variables, confounding variables, true effect, very good. Control over third variable, right? So yeah, true effect is one that concisely describes it. So we want to see that how much of it is because of the first and second variable together, in how much they are influencing each other, and we want to control the third variable. So for example, if we see a very basic example, if you want to see the sleep quality, and if you want to see stress and sleep quality, so even other variables like our age or like our something, age, gender, all of these could influence that. So like, if that, we do not want to check the third variable, we do not want to see the age, we want to check sleep quality and stress levels. So that is why we do partial correlation. So we get the residual effect, of which can determine that this effect, we can say convincingly that this effect is caused by the first two variables, and we are controlling for the third variable, which is age or other variables in context. So yeah, what is sampling error? What does sampling error mean? It is when there is an error between the which two. Okay. I am assuming that you all understand what's the difference between sampling error, measurement bias, and random variance. So we'll move forward with the next. Rollo may emphasize the need for unconditional positive regard, anxiety of choosing one's life path, resolution of unconscious drives, modeling as a learning mechanism. This is pretty simple. Yes. Yes. Anxiety of choosing one's path. Unconditional positive regard is Rogers. Resolution of unconscious drives is psychodynamic. Freud. Modeling is Bandura. Okay. Which identity status involves exploration without commitment? Foreclosure, moratorium, achievement, diffusion. Very good. Shambhavi, Varsha. Hmm. Right. Moratorium. Foreclosure. What do we mean by foreclosure? Does anyone know what does foreclosure mean? And how is it different from moratorium? Okay. So briefly, in foreclosure, what happens is that before the identity could form in itself or could explore and form in itself, it is actually has already committed. Yes, commitment without exploration. Exactly. That is what foreclosure is. And what is identity achievement? Does anyone know that? Oh, identity achievement is ideally a ideal state where you have explored enough, you have tried everything, and you have even committed to. So there is sort of a very very neat overlap between what you have committed to and what you actually identify with after exploring your identity. Yes, the dream. Okay. Bandura's concept of reciprocal determinism suggests that behavior determines environment only. Person, behavior, and environment interact bidirectionally. Only environmental factors drive learning. Reinforcement is not needed for learning. Yes, fairly simple. That this is also sometimes referred as the socio-cognitive theory, and it is taking the concept of reciprocal determinism, where it tries to say that person, behavior, environment, they all interact with each other and they all keep interacting bidirectionally, which is to say that a person, who he is as a person, will influence the behavior, which in turn will influence the environment, but the environment will also be influencing the behavior, and the behavior will then again influence the person and the affect components of the person and everything in a very cyclical and bidirectional format, which is not a typical transitional object. Blanket, soft toy, comforting parent voice recording, or a dog whistle. Okay, so getting mixed answers for this. So what does this come under? Transitional object. Where do we talk about this? Under which domain, under which school of thought? Where do we talk about object relations? Right. Psychodynamic object relations, yes. Correct. So Klein, yeah. Blanket, soft toy, comforting parent voice. What do you see? What do you see is from all the four options, which one do you see as appearing the most different, where we cannot really talk about the attachment of a caregiver? Right. In the fourth option, we can form attachments with the pets and dog whistle and all of that. That could be a different concept of its own, but a dog whistle in and of itself could not be a transitional object, because it does not form the initial attachment and the caregiver, the object in itself that we say that is usually an object that represents our internal structure of how we working model of the whoever person we are attached to as a primary caregiver. So like blanket, soft toy, comforting parent voice, all of this could be representative of our primary object, or could be part of that relational primary object that we have. But dog whistle in and of itself could not be that. So yeah, that is why dog whistle here is not a typical transitional object. It could become later on, but it would not be classified as a very typical transitional object in itself, right? Okay, the criterion in signal detection theory refers to strength of the neural response, observer's decision threshold, level of noise in the system, or frequency of stimulus presentation. Hmm. Right. So we understand what signal detection theory is. And yes, in signal detection theory, we are trying to see that what is observer's threshold of detecting. So there are four things or four outcomes that could happen. Either we can have a hit, or we can have a miss, or we could have a false alarm, or what is the fourth one? What is the fourth thing that we could have? What are the four components of signal detection? Correct rejection. Right. So yeah, so it is actually trying to measure the observer's decision threshold and his ability to make those decisions in the presence of a signal. So level of noise in the system would actually is not a criterion, a direct criterion in signal detection theory, and it would actually influence, and it would be like more of a random variance kind of a thing, but it is not what signal detection theory in and of itself talks about. So it talks about, it's mostly based upon these four outcomes and the ability to make a correct decision based on any of these four, right? Okay. Strength of neural response also does not involve fear. Which psychodynamic concept most overlaps with attachment theory? I think we just discussed this. Hmm. Okay. What are the four types of attachments that we can have? The attachment styles. Does anyone know the different attachment styles? What is disorganized also called as? Other name for disorganized attachment style? Does anyone know another name for disorganized attachment style? Okay. So in disorganized attachment style, usually the caregiver who is a source of safety, anxious avoidant, fearful avoidant, right? Correct. Fearful avoidant is also called as disorganized. So the caregiver becomes a source of safety as well as a source of fear. Durkheim's anomy is most likely to arise in highly cohesive communities, rapidly changing societies, totalitarian states, or rural agrarian cultures. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. This is, can you tell me which branch of psychology is this related from? What are we trying to talk about in Durkheim's anomy? Which branch of psychology this is? Study on suicide, correct? To social. Yes. So this social, right? So there are different types, and Durkheim's conceptualization of suicide as well, and the study of suicide, it gave rise to a lot more study and a lot more conceptual understanding of suicide in general and types of suicide. So I would suggest you read upon the types of suicide of Durkheim also. And it usually, so highly cohesive communities, what are highly cohesive communities? Would it relate to Durkheim in any way? Can we think totalitarian states or rural agrarian cultures, rapidly changing society? So we are talking about society, we are talking about social psychology, we are talking about communities, but highly cohesive communities does not really relate with why suicide or Durkheim would happen. For this, you need to know Durkheim's theory and Durkheim study in general. But what it basically or in just refers to is the normlessness. So it will talk about how, because of some major changes that happens, or because of changes that are happening at such a speed or are so radical in nature, that there is a state of normlessness that happens initially. So it could be due to an economic crisis, or it could be due to a health crisis. So we can refer it to as recession periods, or we can think of it in the times of COVID. So these were the times when the societies were rapidly changing. And in these times, it is said that the people are at a greater risk of committing suicide. So this is what so they actually tried to mention that how in such a frenzy it is very difficult for the social norms to exist, or people to follow those norms, or for these norms to actually be so distinct and aware, or to be functional in such a state, so in state of crisis. So yeah, you can read up more on this, but for here it will be rapidly changing societies. Right. Okay. Histrionic personality disorder is classified under which cluster of personality disorder? Hmm. Right. Okay. Uh, hmm. Okay. I would also suggest to understand how cluster A, B, C are conceptualized in newer diagnostic models, like in so ICD-11 follows a ATPD model. So it's called where it will try to see the entire personality disorder also in a continuum. Yes. It will try borderline narcissistic, antisocial, or are included, yes. But it will try to see in a continuum, and it tries to see in the form of, you know, in the form of like more domain wise approach instead of categorical, which was ICD and ICD-10 and the previous formats. So the newer format ICD-11 actually focuses more on seeing the personality disorder in the form of a continuum, and they have conceptualized it as an organization, personality organization. So I would recommend reading also about how they do not really call it borderline personality disorder. They call it borderline personality organization, and under that they specify as mild, moderate, severe. So yeah. Chronic fatigue syndrome is classified under which category of DSM-5? Neurological disorders, somatic symptom and related disorders, sleep wake, or endocrine? Okay. Somatic symptoms. Okay. Any other answers? Hmm. Okay. Yes. So ICD and DSM classifies what do you know what is the ICD term for chronic fatigue syndrome? This is a DSM categorization, but do we know the analogous in ICD? What is it analogous to? What is it called? Okay. So it is usually referred as neurasthenia. In ICD-10, it comes under neurasthenia, and you can look that up. So you can remember that chronic fatigue syndrome is analogous to neurasthenia in ICD. Erickson identified will as emerging from which stage? Trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, industry versus inferiority. Yes. Yeah. Palak, Varsha, Catherine, Sanya. Yes. So, will is a virtue that emerges out of autonomy versus shame and doubt. In this also, I would recommend that you build a story. You take one child or one boy and imagine the lifespan of that boy, and see the virtue and the vices, and narrate a story to yourself so that you do not get confused between what comes before that, and you have a causal link between all of them, right? But yes, it is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Yes, so these were the questions that we had. Now I'll try to ask you all that how did you score and what do you feel about the questions and what are the other things that you would like to discuss. I will now just see the question answer as well, and I will take your questions now. Any other doubts you can ask in the chat box. Okay, so first I'll take this Nikki's question of as you mentioned that you have given a bunch of exam, how did you re-strategize after facing failure in the exam? Okay, so my first failure was SRM. I think I scored the least in private exams in Manipal as well as SRM. I scored the least, and first after the first, what I basically understood was that I was underprepared and I was not solving as much as MCQs I would like myself to solve. Not because I have to see where I stand and what I'm scoring, but just because I need to get better at solving them efficiently and my approach of answering MCQs should get better. So that is something that came with a lot of practice, and that is all I focused on. I tried myself to be very like rational about it and come off as like, okay, I will not indulge in how these mistakes are making me feel. I will actually maintain a mistake book and write down all the mistakes I'm making so that I can see a pattern or I can see the frequency of a mistake in which topics they are. I would be heavily and mechanically objective about things instead of attaching or taking it to my worth or all of that, because none of that was helping me and I did not feel better and I wasn't feeling better after failing. So I got into a mode where I would just try to re-strategize by doing more of what was objectively helping me, that was answering more mocks. And to be honest, it actually helped me a lot if I tried to read up my mistakes. So the book that I made was of mistakes, and I read those book like I read my mistake book as a book in itself, and I tried to make small notes after each mistakes on them. And yeah, okay, that is how I try to re-strategize, by kind of being very defensive about the affective way of I was feeling, and I just focused on being more objective about it. What difference does it make by choosing MPhil after doing masters except the hospital setting? Would it create any difference? I think that's a very good question. Um, so MPhil, if you do not want the clinical exposure and the clinical work, uh, then yeah, it would be very reasonable to question why you should do an MPhil. But it actually normalizes you how it is to sit in front of another person. So that is also something that it gives you, and the humanness aspect of it is a kind of experiential learning that you'll get, and these institutes will have influx would have a greater influx than any other. If you are trying to have a private practice, it would take time for you to see that number of patients or that number of clients. Here you would also have the provision to have a supervisor where you can go who you can go and approach about I sat in the front of this person and I did not know what to do or how to feel or what to say to that person, and they will make you understand your own complexities even better. So if you want that kind of personal discovery, if you want that kind of humanness, and if you want to be able to do therapy ahead and want to develop that therapeutic alliance, then I think it's a good place because of the number that it gives you. Yes. Have you ever felt any learning helplessness and how you coped up with it? So yeah, I have felt helpless, and I actually did not. I did want to give up on this whole pursuit of doing MPhil, and I wanted to check out. So I did actually give up in the middle, and I was doing a bunch of other things. I was trying to work in startups, and I was seeing how they are working and how the market is, and I was also searching to develop other skills for it. And while I was doing that, while I tried to, so it's one of those. steps of creativity, right? Incubation, and where you are incubation, like in an you are in an incubator and you're thinking about something else, and then it hits you that you can still, like, the spirit comes back because you have involved yourself in something else other than just solving MCQs or just worrying about MPhil or just worrying about entrance. So I think it's not bad that you are thinking of alternatives. Indulge in it, explore them, and if you see a rush coming from it, it will give you like it will make you feel more efficacious. Then you can go back to your original thing and see where you stand and try again in that aspect, borrowing it from the alternatives, borrowing the spirit from the alternatives. What's the scope of PsyD in India compared to MPhil? I would not know that. Your prep strategy also, do we need to refer to DSM and ICD? I think just make 3 or 4 columns, DSM 4, DSM 5, or you can just make DSM 5, DSM 5 TR, ICD 10, ICD 11. Do not write anything in them, just write how they are different from each other. One words. Just write keywords of things. Do not write and learn everything. Just throw cues and keywords at yourself and latch information to those cues. So for perhaps like the change, so don't read up so much on the changes and detail. No one would ask you in that detail. Just see how they are different from each other so you can know the distinct properties. Any mocks that I would recommend? I think I would recommend you to solve all the mocks from even try to solve the PhD level mocks because they have a fair bit of MPhil kind of questions as well. And so yeah, solve PhD level mocks if they are available, solve MPhil level mocks, solve UGC net. And you can also, as I've mentioned, the private institutes, if you have the previous year papers of private institutes or DU papers, you can try to solve them as well. So could you please tell us about your MPhil prep journey? How did you prepare? How long did you prepare for? How was your schedule and things you would recommend us not doing? Also the mindset we should have. See, for mindset, it's very hard and it's over demanding at times to ask yourself to be that person, but this worked for me, so I will tell you that I became a robot without feelings, without being hurt. I just had to be a robot and be like, okay, none of this hurts me. Okay, these many mistakes I'm making, but actually that is not what I'm not going to take the how it makes me feel. I'm not going to sit with my feelings. Sitting with my feelings, that sense of there is a sense of urgency with these exams and I cannot indulge in that. And okay, I have to give my shot. I will give my shot in preparation. So my mindset was to just be very objective and rational about it and not to sit with it's not to sit in spiral with how much of my self-worth and self-esteem is lowering down with defeating mocks. Even if I'm scoring less in mocks, I might score good in the main day exam. There's no way to say that if I'm scoring less in mocks, I would not score. I could even show you my tracking of all the mocks that I did. I never actually were ever able to touch a 90 or 85 or any of those. I was every time between 65 to even 85 or like 70s. That was my average most of the time. But I did not believe that that would decide how my exam day paper would look like. So I think just knowing when to zoom in, when to zoom out is very important. Learn that. It's tough, but you have to, if you want to, and it demands a lot of your skill and energy, so you would have to invest in that. But my schedule was I would wake up at around 8 or 9, and I would immediately start from the mistake book. I would start seeing what mistakes I had made last night in the last mock, and I would revise from there. So I would revise my mistakes, I would read up my mistakes, and then go ahead and solve a new mock. And then I would immediately write down the mistakes I've made in the new mock and keep it aside. So this would take at least 1 to 2 hours for me in the morning. Keep it aside. And then just do my general coursework of doing chapter-wise studying. So then it was study hours. So for me, the first hours was revision and solving. So I would start my day with revision and solving, and then I would go ahead with studying the main paper or study session. And then towards the evening, I would go ahead and solve another mock, or I would probably break one mock into two parts, solve half of it in the morning, half of it in the evening. So I would complete that. Again, write down the mistakes of it and just keep it. Do not touch it, do not solve it, do not pour my head over it. Next day morning, with a fresh mind, I would revise what all mistakes I made. And I did this consistently on for like 3 months. I did this consistently every day without missing any day. So yeah, you have to do it consistently also. Yeah, this is how I prepared, and I didn't do I didn't take any extraordinary steps or anything. I was just consistent. I was trying to be like I was trying to detach my emotions from it, and I just thought that I should give preparation my all by solving as much as I can and by making as many mistakes as I can, so that my mistake book is full, but my exam sheet is not with mistakes. So that's what I did. Any other questions that I might have missed? Check the chat box also. How many mocks did I do in a day ideally? So in a day, I usually did try to do two mocks, but two mocks was sometimes a very big demand from myself. And not every day my motivation levels look the same or my energy look the same. So I would, on those days, I would go easy on myself, take one mock and or take a longer mock, like I would do half of UGC net and a full MPhil paper. So something like that I would do, and I would break it down. So if I have to do even two mocks, I would break it down and do it in different chunks. I would sometimes do like that. But if as the days of exams are near, I would recommend that you sit and do the entire mock in one go. Uh, but if you are facing difficulty, you can break it down and do it twice. As long as you're doing the mocks, you have the. It is important to get it right. It is not important to actually be the one to say that I have done like 10,000 mocks or something, or it's just important to get things right. Even if you're doing a lot of mocks but you're not getting it right, at least make note of all the mistakes that you're making so you know where you can go back and correct that from. And mocks, do not attach a lot to mocks. Just leave it. It's a dynamic thing, and it will keep evolving. Your mocks will keep evolving. You will keep evolving with them. Do not attach too much to it. But they are very important in helping you prepare for the final day exam. Nothing prepares you like mocks. As the NIMHANS exam is in few days, what would you recommend as what should we do in the last few days? In the last few days, as I said, I would recommend you to make these revision sheets, and where you would actually throw your mistakes in and you would throw keywords in. So like the Kalmanomy would be a keyword. You would know social psychology, you would know suicide, you would know types of suicide. So these keywords are all that should form a network in your mind of what all other related concepts are attached with this word, right? So make those revision sheets. And for statistics and research also, instead of like biserial correlation, partial correlation, all of that, instead of trying to memorize them, just try to write down or just try to remember examples of things, or understand through examples, because that is what helps in research and stats better. So yeah, in the last week I would recommend you to actually do mocks and make revision sheets where you're putting in your mistakes and you're putting in the keywords, which are cues for other related concepts, because there's no way you would know everything. What else? There is so much to be covered, theories, different people in the field, and how would look more about the lesser known concepts. So you would not know. The first answer is you would not know always. So what you can do is each time you can either divide it into schools of thought and be like any person in object relations, I'll put him here. Any person in psychodynamic, I'll put them in a bigger branch. So you can make these categories and you can keep filling information in that and create a note of your own. That is the only way of knowing more of lesser known concepts. However, you do not have to indulge a lot in it, because psychology in itself is very vast. They could ask from anywhere, and it's no way possible for anyone to know all of them. But it's good to know most of them. So each time you come across something new, just put them into schools of thought. So you can put them into development, you can put them into existential, you can put them into modern theories or anything. Just make those 6 to 7 columns of schools of thought and put them. So at least you know where you have heard about this person, and then you can even eliminate the options better, because you would know that which school of thought they belong to. Yeah, that is what I would recommend. Um, Let me see. Do you prepare for the exams on your own completely? No, I did also rely on buying mocks from the online coaching that was available at my point. And I did see a bunch of Hafsa Ma'am's videos as well. So I've not done it entirely on my own. Last 5 day tips and routine would be to not do anything too different. Even take the exam day as any other day and try to just be more efficient on that day. To try to be more optimal on that day, and try to develop this skill that um, even if it goes south, it is fine. This much what I know, at least I do write and come. So you can nowhere know all. And if you have memory related problems, you're finding it hard to recall and everything, I would just recommend the last few days, just do not read anything new or build up on new concepts. Just try to rehearse what you already know. And for that, revision sheets are really nice. Just make a long notebook sheet of everything you want to throw that you have come across mocks. I repeatedly come across mocks from memory. You don't even have to see where all you have made mistakes. From memory, you just see there will be a theme that will be forming in your head about the mistakes you have made. So you know that these are the topics that I've made most mistakes in, and this is what I fear the most also. So write down those topics and just write down the keywords of those topics. Read about the keywords. Do not write full length answers, full length lines or stories or anything. Just write the keyword and go ahead and read that upon that keyword. And yeah, do mocks. Do mocks in the last few days. I think I've covered most of the questions. Anything else if you would like me to tell you or expect to know from me, I will let you know if there are. And any other resources and questions that I have, I can send it through Shannon to you all. And anything else, if I have, I will share it across. But I think I have covered most of it. And yeah, hope you were able. Do we get Indian psych questions in the advanced and other exams? Yes, we do get Indian psychology questions. History of psychology from an Indian perspective. There are, so what I would want you to do is go to Google Scholar, history of Indian psychology, or you can say history of psychology in India, and you will get these research papers. They are heavily researched, and they are heavily concise, and you can just highlight the names that come up for you, and that would be more than enough. Reading one paper or two papers, I think the first few papers that you'll get are enough for you to know about them. Do not try to read Indian psychology from said number of books or so many books, because you do not need to know so much about Indian psychology or the history of psychology in India so much. You just need to know the major events, and those research papers would give you that. Or I think some of these YouTube videos also would give you that. You can look for them, but I did it from research papers, so that is what I'm recommending to you. How is my full journey? What is your suggestion on exam where there's negative marking? How to go about the elimination process? Yeah, so this is an area that I'm also not very great at. So what happened with me, the major problem would be that I would confuse myself. So and there's a lot of heuristics involved in it. So the idea is to not fall into the trap, go with the first answer. And uh, if you do not, if you're not sure, do not mark, leave it, do not mark it for now, and come back to it later. But you will see that your first answer that you were gravitating towards after reading the question is what you should ideally, I would recommend from my pattern that I've seen goes well. Do not overthink and confuse yourself or second guess your answers. You know enough of theories. You know more of concept. You have more conceptual knowledge and know more about concepts. So when you're reading a question, there your entire mind is activated of all the concepts. So subliminally it knows. So just try to not confuse your mind by actually second guessing or getting confused between so many options. And as I mentioned, try to see which one of these is more right, or try to see which one of these are more wrong looking like, or cannot be. Try to eliminate by more wrong. So hierarchy of wrong or hierarchy of right. So whichever works. And for some questions, wrong might work better than the right one. So you have to see which is the most wrong, less wrong, lesser wrong, least wrong. So the least wrong is your answer, is the correct answer. So you can do like that also elimination. How was my interview experience? So I actually did not get to go for any interviews because Abhas in itself does not contain any interview. They just ask you your experience, your previous experience. They do not ask you any theoretical or objective questions. So I would not be able to tell you about interview because I've not given them. And I don't know how it happens in CIP. What is your suggestion on exam when there is a negative marking? Oh, I already answered that. So yeah, my full daily routine is I would be posted in any of the branches. So my morning contains of assessments, filing reports, doing assessments, PKT, IQ, all of that. And after that, in the afternoon, we have classes, academic programs, case conferences, seminars that we need to attend, or we are either put for ward duty, where we would go in wards and we will see patients in wards. So this is what afternoon looks like. This is the morning are mostly assessment related. ABHAS exams usually happens in October. Any suggestions for the way of studying psychological assessments? So for psychological assessments, you only need to know like 5 or 6 things, right? 5 things: the year it was made, what all it includes, what are the the year it was made, what all it includes, the main components, what is the age range, who gave it, what was his idea for conducting this assessment, what does it measure. So like this 5. So you need only, again, make a table of only these 5 components for each of the tests that are there, because they do not in depth ask you for anything more than this. They will either ask you the component of that assessment, they'll either ask you the year, or about the author, or like the one who has created that assessment. So yeah, just know how much just limit how much you should know. um, any idea? Abhas might conduct exam in September or October. Psychopharmacology. So psychopharmacology is not a very favorite question for like government exams, but NIMHANS etc. might ask. You should. They expect you to know mostly the basic level. If you are able to tell if it's a benzodiazepine or not, or if you are getting confused between whether caffeine is a stimulant or not. So they only expect you to know very basic psychopharmacological things. If it's an SSRI, or if it's an antipsychotic, so they expect you to know that much, and they are not very keen on understanding your understanding of psychopharmacology, because we are rarely taught that, and they just want you to know if you know the categories where they fall, and if you know what disorder it might be used for. I would recommend for NIMANS, childhood disorders are important. Read up on childhood disorders and childhood theories. any source for getting PhD papers, you can actually try to go to the DU's official website and look for their previous year papers, or you can go to the official website of these colleges and see for their previous year's papers. If not, you can just do a very basic Google search of PhD papers available online for psychology. And if not, I will also share across some of the ones that I have already. So childhood disorders, you can read from. I think Ahuja has a little bit of description about etiology and everything. But if you want to know the theories, the names will be there. If you can go ahead and search about those names and know about the theories. I would not recommend a book where you can study, because studying a book is very difficult. But otherwise, if you really want to, there's comprehensive textbook of psychiatry. Learn it from psychiatric books. They have a better, they have more content on it that way. So yeah, you can learn it from CTP, OTP. OTP is Oxford Textbook of Psychiatry or Comprehensive Textbook of Psychiatry. That's where you can learn it from. Otherwise, ICD, DSM is enough. For theories, you can refer to Ahuja. Instead of studying from different books, can we focus on solving? Yes, I did. I did mostly that. I did not study books. I did backward. I used to study mocks, go back to reading those concepts from the books. That is what I did. So you can try that work for me. So that's backward learning, where you solve mocks, learn from those mocks, or learn about those concepts, take those mistakes, and go ahead and read on those mistakes in the books instead of picking a book and then going to mocks. Yeah, and also I'm fairly available online. You can always reach out to me or write to me, and I will try to help you in whichever way possible with respect to resources, questions, or anything else. And yeah, I will be there for another MCQ session as well. So I hope to see you all. If you have any feedback for me, please feel free to drop that as well. I would like to know if the pace was right, if things were right, and everything. So you can share that as well. Your yes. So yeah, you can. Apart from this, you can always reach out to me, and I always make sure to reply. I understand there's a time crunch, but I can be there as much as I can. So it was clear. Okay, so for practice questions, just even pick up the mocks that you have already done, but you've scored less in them. So like a mock that you've got 50 or 30 on, or like 60 on, pick up that mock, try to solve it again, try to solve it again. You do not have to find tons of resources. The resource that you have, at least, less is more. The resource you have, at least, try to exploit them. And if at all, I will be sharing some of the papers that I have still in my resource bank. I will share that with you. But yeah, don't get too fed up on how many questions to do and yeah. Yeah, in just I am only telling from my experience, and these all things worked for me. This is how I prepared. But for you, it could be very different, and it could you could have your own idiosyncratic way of doing or solving it, or unique way. Keep that intact. Just because someone who is on the other side is telling you this is the way to do things, it's not the only way to do things. You might have some special rituals, some special way of countering, some special way of approaching. Keep that intact. That's for you. And yeah, should not lose that. But more or less, this is what helped me, and I wish you all the best. And I'll see you again. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any feedback for me that I should improve on or do more or less of? Okay. Okay. I think I will end it here. Thank you so much. Good luck, guys. Bye.